Well, just over 20 years ago, Karen and I had the privilege of being part of planting a new church. And not dissimilar to the early days of when this church was started, which was about 44 years ago, at the time in St. Catharines, when we were starting this new church, we had many young couples choose to join and be a part of our journey. And what that meant was we were also blessed over the initial years with a whole bunch of young babies. We had quite a few child dedication moments, and they were very special. And I will always remember this one couple who had their first baby daughter. It was their oldest. She was a delight. She came and was so exciting for them as a couple. They were a couple that were very involved in the church. He was a musician. He was part of our leadership team. She was involved in all kinds of ways as well, hospitality and building relationships, etc. So they were so excited when their baby daughter came into this world. There was a lot of joy and anticipation until a few weeks after her birth. And they started to notice that this little daughter of theirs wasn't responding in the ways that they kind of would have anticipated. They got curious. They ended up going to a doctor. They did a bunch of tests and assessments, only to discover that their sweet baby daughter was born blind. We were stunned, heartbroken. How could this be? We certainly didn't ask the questions that are asked in the story we're about to talk about from John 9, such as who sinned, this baby or her parents? But we did ask a really difficult question. Why? And we began to join together to pray for her. And we believed deeply that God could heal. We had a ceremony of anointing with oil. We had passionate prayer times. I remember them being up at the front of the service and the congregation and leaders gathering around to pray. We believed that God could heal. But she was not healed. She remained blind. And we were left with a lot of questions, concerns, and even sadness. But she was loved. She grew. She was extremely special. She became a remarkable young woman, and she has recently been engaged. She's a musician, an artist, extremely articulate. And some years ago, she and her brother, her younger brother, started a podcast. And they called it Convos with Julia, where she answered questions and answers questions to listeners on what life is like when you are blind. Questions like, if I had the opportunity to drive a self-driving car, would I take it? Or what items do I tend to trip over in my home? Turns out it's her cat and her dog. What is it like to draw as a person blind? You get the idea. She has taken what we would often view as a real loss and turned it into something remarkable. She's embraced her life without physical sight, but lives life to the full. And she can hear, I'm guessing, better than any of us. Well, I mentioned that story because I've been thinking about blindness. John chapter 9, we just heard the story recounted for us. And what I'd simply like to do is walk through the story again. It'll be rather simple. And just highlight a few different comments along the way. So in this chapter, again, John simply says, he sets it up with a simple comment. Jesus was walking along the road and he saw a man blind from birth. And of course, you ask the question, well, how did they know that? Why was that so important? We're not told. But what we are told is the response of the disciples. Rabbi, who sinned? This man or his parents? Why was he born blind? It was the default question, I believe, in their culture. And it crops up in our culture context too. Surely there's a tragedy here. Somebody must be at fault. It certainly can't be God's design. Someone must be to blame. But who? And Jesus responds, actually, it's neither. It's not the man, it's not his parents. But it's so that the power of God can be displayed and become visible to all of you. And then we hear this odd statement. Jesus bent down, he spit into the dust and made mud in his hands. Now, I realized this week that even as I'm getting a bit older, I'm still a boy at heart. And I was wondering, how much spit does it take? Like, really? I didn't test it. I'm thinking about it even right now. Get it out of my mind. Like, how much, really? Was it just a very small piece of mud? Was it a lot? Did it take him quite some time? It doesn't matter. He took that blob of mud, spread it across the man's eyes, and he simply said, "Go and wash in the pool of Siloam." We have recounted in the Old Testament, that several prophets would do dramatic things. Particularly, I'm thinking of Ezekiel. On one occasion, he actually, for effect, ate a scroll. One time, he tied himself up with cords. On another occasion, he deliberately shaved his head to capture people's attention. Jesus stops, makes a little pile of mud, and puts it on this man's eyes. Keep in mind, the man never sees Jesus. Well, the man is obedient. He went. He washed as he was told, and suddenly the scales fell off his eyes, and he could see. It's really pretty remarkable. Once I was blind, now I can see. But here's where the story takes an odd twist. Because you would think there would be celebration and excitement, like a miracle has just happened. But instead, in that community, a dispute breaks out. Isn't this the beggar? The one who sat here every day? It looks like him. No way, it can't be. Yes, it is him. And as we heard, the blind man responded, it's me. I am the one. But that can't be. You must be an imposter. How is this possible? How could this have happened? You see, the leaders wanted to get to the heart of the issue. Tell us what happened. And so he responds, well, the man that they called Jesus made some mud. He put it on my eyes. He told me to go wash. I went, I washed, and now I see. They discover that Jesus made this mud on the Sabbath. I guess you're not allowed to do that on the Sabbath. They were looking for a loophole to say and do things against Jesus. They couldn't accept that a miracle had happened. So they said to him again, tell us again, how can you see? Mud on my eyes, I washed, now I see. No, this man that you claim healed you, he can't be from God. He broke the laws of the Sabbath. They refuse to believe him. So they seek additional verification. They call in the man's parents. We're not told how old this man was, whether this made any sense, that they would bring in his parents, but they brought him in front. Is this really your son? Was he really born blind? What happened? How is it that he now sees? To which they respond, sorry? Yes, this is our son. Yes, he was born blind. How he sees now, we don't know. Ask him. There's a nice way to dodge it. He's old enough. Truth be told, the parents were fearful for their own standing in that community. They didn't want to take responsibility for something that they even didn't fully understand. So the leaders again call out the man. They put him on the hot seat. They bring him in again. Who healed you? That guy, Jesus, he's actually a sinner, you know. Sinner or not, I don't know. But I know this. I was blind, and now I see. What did this Jesus do? Exactly how did he open your eyes? Tell us again how this happened. Exasperated, the man says, I already told you. You don't want to listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Are you trying to become his disciples? This healed man begins to push back. You can hear some of the sarcasm in his voice. He's beginning to stand up to these leaders. You see, he's always been marginalized. What does he have to lose? Well, they explode. They're completely angry. They simply refuse to see what is in front of them, and they are blind in their understanding. Their minds have been made up about Jesus. They are closed to anything that Jesus offers. All that he says or does is distorted, blurred. They can't see, or at least they refuse to see. The man pushes them even a bit further. You know what? This is amazing. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. No one has ever opened the eyes of someone born blind. If this man weren't from God, he couldn't do anything. To which they said, you were born in sin, and you're teaching us? and they threw him out. You dare challenge us? The establishment? The powers that be? We, the wise leaders? It was true. They held all the power in that community. The parents had been intimidated into silence. And now the man who has been healed is literally thrown out of the synagogue. And I pause and I wonder, why do we do that so often to each other? Why do we have a disposition to defend the status quo, even when sometimes the truth is right in front of us? When new realities come before us, it can be very hard to accept that God is doing something new. Those who see things in new ways often become a threat to those of us in the establishment. You see, Jesus was a threat to the leaders of his day. Well, he heard what had happened to the man, and he sought him out and he found him. Jesus was so attuned to the fact that even a miracle could create so much unsettledness and so much discomfort for this man. And he shows incredible empathy and compassion. In that moment, when everybody should have been so filled with joy, there was in fact pain, confusion, and even loss. But Jesus reaches for this man. He moves towards him. He understands and he shows deep empathy. He finds the man and he asks this simple question: do you believe in the Son of Man? To which the man said, who is he? Tell me. I want to believe. You see, the man was uncertain. Who was this Jesus? And then you get these powerful words. You've seen him. He's the one speaking to you. Like in this moment, you actually for the first time see Jesus. To which the man responded, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped him. We know that Jesus does not heal everyone, but he does heal. And he has come to open our eyes to see him, to see the love and the action of the Father directed towards those he's created. And in this story, Jesus gets the final word. He said, I came into this world to expose the truth so that the blind may see, and those who claim to see may realize that they are blind. Jesus came to bring sight to this man, and he's come to bring sight to us. But we need to accept and receive and open ourselves to what he is showing us. And I want to simply leave us with this challenge and this invitation. Jesus, would you open my eyes? Amen.